Hey guys, tonight we will wander softly through the calm villages of pre-Columbian America, letting your imagination drift across warm earth and simple dwellings. You step slowly into a morning that feels timeless, where the first light filters through woven thatch roofs. It is a moment that asks nothing from you, except to breathe and notice. Imagine soft footsteps on packed soil, cool against your skin. You hear distant birdsong and the faint stir of clay pots being moved gently. People begin their day with tasks passed down for generations. It is so calm you almost wonder how they ever managed without coffee. And honestly, you might not survive here. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly through the ancient village, the morning mist resting against your skin like a soft blanket. The earth beneath your feet feels cool and steady, shaped by countless footsteps long before yours. The air carries a freshness that feels almost new, though it has been breathed for centuries. Life here unfolds without hurry, moving gently in rhythm with the land itself. The houses are simple, built of clay and wood, their surfaces still holding the faint marks of hands that once molded them. Your senses begin to attune to the details. From somewhere nearby drifts the quiet aroma of maize being ground, accompanied by the calm, steady sound of stone against stone. A woman prepares dough for the morning meal, her movements unhurried. The Maya often began their day with maize and beans, a humble yet sustaining combination. You imagine the warmth of freshly made tortillas, the earthy flavor of beans simmered slowly over fire. Each bite, you realize, carried more than nourishment. It carried memory and tradition. You pause by a narrow lane, expecting little. Yet as your eyes wander, you see a hidden order in the path. Stones are arranged in deliberate, geometric patterns, forming shapes that seem almost like a message written into the ground. Archaeologists continue to study paths like these, uncertain whether they were made for ceremony or for simple use. The mystery hangs quietly in the air, like a whisper from the past. You sense that perhaps not everything here was meant to be explained. Some things exist only to be walked upon, felt in silence, and remembered gently. The sun rises higher, light brushing the clay walls until they glow gold. Thatch roofs shimmer with dew. The village seems to exhale, releasing the hush of night and opening itself to the day. Your breath falls into rhythm with this unfolding. There is no hurry, only contentment in noticing. Further on, your ears catch the thrum of a pestle striking corn. The sound is steady, like a heartbeat, a cycle repeated for centuries. Modern kitchens hum with noisy machines, but here the rhythm is calm, almost meditative. You smile at the thought of someone plugging in a blender and startling half the village. Through the lanes, a child drifts lazily after a dog. Neither rushes, their laughter soft and mingled with birdsong overhead. Even play seems to follow the rhythm of ease. Every gesture here flows with the current of the day. Your eyes fall on clay jars clustered by a doorway. Some hold water from the well, others are ready for beans or grain. They are not extravagant, but beautiful in their simplicity. You imagine their surfaces rough in some places, smooth in others, shaped by experience rather than speed. Quiet artistry rests in these ordinary vessels. The village stirs. Smoke rises from hearths, curling into the brightening sky. You smell herbs being crushed, perhaps for seasoning or healing. Life is woven tightly with plants, each leaf carrying purpose. You breathe deeply, aware of how survival once meant partnership with the land, not resistance. The thought makes you smile, knowing how many now struggle to keep even one plant alive on a windowsill. An elder sits nearby on a low stool. His posture is relaxed, gaze steady on the horizon. He does not rush, nor does he seem to need movement. He embodies patience, as if time itself rests in his stillness. Simply standing near him makes you calmer, as though wisdom can be shared in silence. The morning deepens, and the village begins to stir. Figures move with quiet intention, someone carrying a bundle of firewood, another bending to tend a small garden plot. Nothing feels hurried. Every task unfolds like a gentle rhythm, smooth as waves lapping against a still lake. You notice how your own body responds to this pace. Your shoulders loosen, your breath grows longer, and for the first time in a while, work feels less like a race and more like a flow. The village itself becomes less a collection of homes and more a meditation, each person part of a greater rhythm, lived in harmony with the earth. At the edge of the settlement, fields of maize stretch outward. The morning mist lifts slowly, revealing neat rows of young stalks, green against the dark soil. They lean upward toward the rising sun, glowing softly like scattered emeralds. You sense immediately that this is more than food. It is a lifeline, a ritual, a bond to ancestors. Each stalk carries meaning, an unspoken prayer woven into the land. A breeze stirs through the fields, brushing leaves against each other until they sound like whispers passed between friends. You let your hand graze a stalk, the surface cool with lingering dew. The gesture is small, yet grounding. You laugh softly at the thought that city streets could never hold a soundtrack so tender. Behind you, the village hums with quiet life. Ahead, the fields stretch toward light. The day moves forward without urgency. You inhale deeply, sensing how time here is not something to chase, but something that cradles you. Morning is not a challenge to conquer, but a space to dwell within slowly, steadily, at ease. You step quietly beyond the village's edge, where the packed soil path widens into fields. The morning air is still cool, though the sun has begun its climb. A thin haze drifts above the earth, as though the land exhales. You walk at an easy pace, feet brushing scattered stones, each step calm. The hum of insects rises around you, not as noise, but as part of the place, reminding you that every sound here belongs. Before you stretches a sea of maize, tall stalks swaying with the breeze, green blades brushing together in a hushed rhythm. You pause, listening to the soft rustle, a sound like fabric moving in wind. Each row feels deliberate, placed with patience. The Aztec people cultivated maize with deep awareness of rain, soil, and sun. These were not just fields, but partnerships with the earth, cycles of balance and care. In silence, each plant seems to hold a story. You wander between rows, letting your fingers trail across leaves. Dew clings to your skin, cool as morning jewels. The stalks tower above you, straight and strong, forming arches of green overhead. A breeze moves through, turning the field into a living chorus. You smile quietly, realizing these plants impress you more than any skyscraper. The soil offers small, detailed sprouts of beans and squash planted between the maize. This method, known as the Three Sisters, was central to Native American life. Maize stood tall, beans climbed upward, and squash spread across the ground to guard the soil's moisture. It is harmony rooted in earth itself, a lesson in balance more convincing than any book. Your eyes fall on one patch of maize, different from the rest. The stalks are thinner, leaves narrower, yet strong. These are older varieties, preserved carefully through generations. Archaeologists have uncovered seeds thousands of years old, still capable of growing. You imagine holding such a seed, time folded into silence, carrying memory across centuries. Its endurance feels like a quiet whisper. The past never vanishes. It waits. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the scent of earth and green. The fragrance is grounding, sweet and fresh, like grass touched by sun. You realize how often modern life dulls such simple gifts, trading them for exhaust and concrete. Here, even soil feels like medicine. You pause, exhaling slowly, letting the air wash away clocks and deadlines. Around you, the maze stands tall, living only for light, rushing for nothing. You chuckle softly, imagining what your calendar might say about plants that refuse to keep time. You glance upward, watching how sunlight filters through the leaves. The rays scatter in shifting patterns, painting the ground with soft shapes that change as the wind moves. The light feels alive, dancing with the stalks, always shifting yet never frantic. You follow the patterns with your eyes, tracing them like gentle brushstrokes on the canvas of the earth. The effect is hypnotic, as if the maze fields themselves invite you to surrender to their rhythm. You feel your body grow looser, your shoulders unclench, your steps slow further. You arrive at a small clearing in the heart of the field, where the maze opens into a circle of earth. Wooden hoes and baskets rest quietly along the edge, their surfaces worn smooth by countless hands. They seem more than tools, almost ceremonial, carrying the weight of memory. You picture farmers lifting them each morning, repeating gestures that fed entire villages. Farming was never just labor, but a rhythm of gratitude and care. Even these simple objects seem to hold the dignity of harvests long past, and you smile, amused at how your kitchen spatula feels trivial by comparison. The breeze strengthens, and the stalks respond with a deeper rustle. The sound spreads like whispers, voices rippling in waves. You close your eyes, listening as though the maze itself speaks. It is not language, but rhythm, an ancient pulse written in leaves and stems. You imagine Aztec farmers hearing the same voice centuries ago, comforted by its constancy. The field is alive, not silent, holding a conversation older than memory. You kneel and touch the soil. It is dark, moist, steady beneath your palm, rich with life. The earth feels both generous and firm, reminding you that ancient farmers once knew it deeply, respecting its moods. Farming then was a partnership, never mere extraction. You chuckle softly, imagining those farmers shaking their heads at modern lawn commercials. As you stand, your eyes sweep across the horizon. The maize fields unfold in steady rows, reaching until they blend with the distant hills. The view feels boundless, yet never heavy. It carries you gently, as if to remind you that vastness can be soft and calming. Each stalk of maize stands both ordinary and sacred, practical in purpose, yet poetic in form. You slow your pace, allowing your breath and steps to fall into rhythm with the quiet order around you. The fields seem to whisper that progress, too, can be patient. Along the path, you notice a cluster of younger plants. Their leaves are smaller, their stalks slender, more easily swayed by the wind. They remind you of children, fragile but reaching upward with determination. You imagine villagers watching them daily, offering care with deliberate patience. Growth here is a relationship built on attention and trust. You smile at the thought of your houseplant, perhaps envious of such devotion. You pause once more, letting the stillness settle deeper. The maze does not demand admiration, yet it carries a quiet grandeur. It embodies resilience, generosity, and time. You picture meals, stories, and ceremonies that all begin here, rooted in these simple stalks rising toward the sun. History lingers in the air, gentle, steady, present. The maze remains both food and symbol, life unfolding without hurry. As you turn to leave the fields, the sound of rustling stalks follows you like a gentle farewell. The breeze softens, the dew begins to dry, and the light strengthens overhead. You walk back toward the village path, carrying with you the stillness of the maze. It lingers in your body, shaping your breath, slowing your thoughts. You feel as if the fields themselves have lent you their rhythm, asking you only to move gently, to live patiently, to notice. You return to the heart of the village as morning deepens into its rhythm. Behind you, the fields breathe softly, while ahead, dwellings stir with quiet activity. The air carries the faint crackle of firewood, the splash of water from a clay jar, the steady thud of stone on stone. These are not hurried noises, but patient beginnings, each sound a soft drumbeat, urging you to slow your own pace. Near the central hearth, a small group moves with calm precision. One tends the fire, laying slender sticks into the flames with practiced care. Another grinds maize on a metate, her arms circling with unbroken rhythm. The sound is steady, almost tender stone against stone like rain tapping gently on a roof. You think of how coffee machines hum and sputter in modern kitchens, somehow far less graceful. Far to the south, the Inca shaped mornings with rituals equally practical and profound. They recorded life through quipas chords knotted with intention. Some tracked harvests, others ceremonial cycles, perhaps even stories. You picture fingers moving quietly in dawn light, tying memory into threads. So simple, yet vast enough to hold a people's history. By comparison, your tangled headphones seem oddly trivial. Even today, scholars puzzle over quipas, uncertain whether they encoded only numbers or woven narratives. Some knots appear almost poetic, resisting tidy explanation. Watching villagers here, you sense a similar language silent gestures, careful motions, tasks carried out with meaning. Perhaps quipas, like these rhythms, were not meant to be fully solved, only lived with. Children play nearby, laughter rising like a flute in the still air. A dog barks softly, playful rather than sharp. No sound competes. Each folds into the next, weaving harmony. The village feels like a living composition, effortless yet balanced. You smile quietly, realizing this place already plays its own ambient song, composed not of instruments, but of life itself. You pass by a man sprinkling water onto small plants arranged near his home. The droplets glisten in the sun, catching light like fragments of glass. The plants themselves are herbs, some for flavor, some for medicine. Each is tended with patience, as if every leaf holds value. The water trickles into the soil, darkening it in small circles, before disappearing below. You imagine the roots drawing it eagerly, unseen yet vital. The sound of water against earth is quiet but deeply grounding. You breathe in, feeling your own body respond as if refreshed. Nearby, a woman spreads fresh fibers across a wooden frame. Her hands move with care, stretching and arranging them. These fibers will later become woven cloth, but for now, the act itself feels almost ceremonial. She hums a low tune, not loud, not meant for anyone else, but for herself. The song rises and falls like the breath of the earth, steady and unbroken. You realize that rituals do not always require temples or ceremonies. Sometimes they are found in the small repetition of ordinary acts. You smile at the thought that brushing your teeth is technically a ritual, though without the poetry. You step into the shade of a clay-walled structure, the mixture of earth and straw holding coolness like a vessel. Inside, smoke drifts lazily upward, carrying the faint scent of herbs. An elder sits on a woven mat, carefully arranging stones, feathers, and small carved figures. Each placement feels intentional, though its purpose remains a mystery: healing, memory, or simple order. You realize the reason hardly matters. The act itself radiates calm, every object resting with quiet weight. The stillness here is not empty silence, but of fullness, like a vessel brimming with water. Every movement, each faint sound, even the fragrance of smoke contributes to it. Rituals, you sense, reshape time. They slow it, stretch it, give it texture. Without them, mornings blur into sameness, but here, each day feels distinct, anchored by gesture. You smile at the thought of your own mornings vanishing into alarms and glowing screens, and chuckle at the image of an Inca farmer hitting snooze on a phone. Stepping outside, the brightness startles you. The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows that stretch like slow rivers across the earth. Villagers seem to read them, moving with their flow. You recall how ancient builders aligned walls and plazas with the sun and stars, letting architecture itself keep time. The thought soothes you once. Hours were not numbers, but shadows drifting across stone. A breeze rises, mingling smoke with the sweet scent of maize and the damp fragrance of soil. You breathe deeply, as though inhaling centuries. Each breath feels like a dialogue, an opening with the inhale, a gentle closing with the exhale. The rhythm of the village has seeped into you. You laugh softly at the thought. It is mindfulness training, older than words, taught simply by earth and sky. You walk back toward the central plaza, where villagers continue their tasks. Children now carry small baskets, assisting parents with gathering food. Elders sit quietly, watching, not instructing but present. The soundscape remains steady. Grinding stones, crackling fires, trickling water, low voices. You notice how none of the sounds are harsh. They blend seamlessly, never overwhelming. You realize that even in activity, there is space for calm. The day unfolds not as a rush, but as a gentle layering of moments. As you pause at the edge of the plaza, you think about the quippes again. The knots remain a mystery, yet their presence is undeniable. Some may have held calendars, others taxes, others memories. Some scholars believe they encoded stories, entire narratives tied into chords. The thought lingers with you that knowledge can exist in forms unfamiliar, just as meaning can be held in silence. The chords may never be fully understood, and perhaps that is the point. Not every ritual asks to be explained. Some only ask to be lived. You stand quietly, letting the morning ritual of the village surround you. The sounds continue, the scents drift, the movements unfold. Everything is calm yet alive, a perfect balance of stillness and motion. You sense how these rituals did more than sustain life. They nourished the spirit, weaving meaning into each day. You let yourself sink into that rhythm as if time itself has softened, holding you gently. You follow a narrow path leading away from the village, your steps unhurried. The morning warmth lingers, softened by a steady breeze, brushing your face like a cool hand. Faintly, you hear water moving a patient rhythm calling you forward. The trees part to reveal a broad river, its surface shimmering under sunlight, ripples gliding across it like silk on glass. You pause at the edge, letting your gaze settle into its calm flow. The river does not rush. It simply continues, timeless and sure. Rivers have always been centers of life. For countless generations, they carried water for crops, food for families, and pathways for journeys. You recall how the Mississippian peoples built their great towns along riverbanks, raising earthen mounds nearby. These waterways connected them to distant places, carrying not just goods, but stories and kinship. You imagine traders in wooden canoes, the steady dip of paddles marking time with the current, their bodies swaying to the river's rhythm. On the shore rests a canoe, carved from a single tree trunk. Its surface, polished by hands in water, holds the memory of the forest it once stood in. Dugout canoes like this were shaped patiently with fire and stone, labor stretched across days. You run your fingers along the grain, sensing both the endurance of wood and the care of craft. It feels alive, waiting to carry you as if it knows the river's language. Stepping inside, you settle low, the vessel rocking gently beneath you. A paddle rests across your knees, simple, balanced, perfectly suited for its work. You push from the bank, and the canoe glides forward. The water welcomes you without resistance, the paddle dipping in and out with a rhythm like a quiet heartbeat. Each stroke carries you farther, never hurried, only aligned with the river's pace. The scenery drifts past in quiet balance. Tall grasses lean toward the current, brushing its surface with tender arcs. Birds swoop low, their wings casting fleeting shadows. Beneath, fish stir briefly, vanishing into circles that fade as quickly as they form. Nothing demands attention, yet everything belongs. The river does not perform. It simply continues, steady and timeless. You smile softly, struck by how rare it feels today to move without urgency, to be carried rather than to chase. As you glide, the river's role as a highway of connection comes to mind. Archaeologists have uncovered seashells deep inland, copper from the Great Lakes, obsidian from the Rockies, turquoise from the Southwest, all passed hand to hand along waterways. You imagine canoes traveling for weeks, paddlers guided by stars and currents, their journeys carrying not just goods, but rituals and stories, the slow weaving of culture itself. There is mystery here, too. Some ancient canoes, preserved beneath mud and water, have endured for centuries. One uncovered in Wisconsin was over 1,200 years old, its worn wood still carrying the memory of its maker. You wonder how many others rest unseen below, silent witnesses kept in the river's embrace. Your paddle dips and rises, each stroke leaving a swirl that vanishes back into flow. Watching, you learn the lesson of impermanence. Nothing clings, everything returns. Breathing with the rhythm, inhaling with the pull, exhaling with the release, you feel your body merge with the current, carried effortlessly within something larger than yourself. The sunlight shifts, scattering patterns across the river's surface. Reflections of trees dance with ripples, breaking into shapes that shimmer and vanish. You realize the river is painting endlessly, each moment a new picture, gone as soon as it appears. You do not feel loss, only awe, as though beauty need not be kept to be real. The water teaches you about transience, about how to let go. You laugh quietly, wondering if the river is the world's first meditation teacher. You pass by a small sandbar where turtles rest lazily in the sun. They do not move as you approach, content in their stillness. Beyond them, reeds sway, hiding the movements of unseen animals. The air carries the scent of wet earth, fresh and grounding. It mingles with the faint sweetness of wildflowers along the bank. Each breath deepens your calm, rooting you more fully in the moment. You realize that nothing here is rushed, not the turtles, not the plants, not the river, and now, not you. You lift your gaze to the drifting clouds above, their white forms mirrored perfectly on the river below. For a moment, it feels as though you are floating between two skies, one stretched overhead, the other rippling beneath. The sensation blurs boundaries, softening the line between earth and heaven. You set the paddle across your knees and allow the canoe to drift, surrendering to the current. This stillness feels like trust, like a quiet belonging. You recall how many native peoples regarded rivers as living beings, guardians, teachers, providers. Ceremonies were held at the banks, offerings given with reverence, gratitude carried on smoke and song. The river was never owned. It was honored, a relative woven into the rhythm of life. You think of how far modern culture has strayed from this way of seeing. Yet here, in silence, the bond feels undeniable. The water sustains and soothes, asking not for control, but for respect. The canoe glides on, effortless, as time loosens its grip. Minutes dissolve into the steady pulse of the river. You notice how your shoulders ease, how your thoughts quiet, how your breath falls into rhythm with the flow. The river carries not just your vessel, but your mind, smoothing its edges, washing away its noise. The current bends, leading you beneath leaning trees. Their branches reach out as though forming an archway, a natural cathedral. Sunlight slips through the leaves, scattering patterns that dance across the water. You drift beneath, listening as the leaves stir in the breeze, their whispers blending with the murmur of the current. Closing your eyes, you let the sounds surround you. Water lapping against wood, wind threading through branches, distant bird calls rising and fading. They overlap yet never collide, a harmony without beginning or end. Resting in that song, you float as if cradled, suspended between presence and dream. The canoe continues, steady, carrying you deeper into calm. You return from the river path as morning opens into soft gold, following the gentle sounds of preparation through courtyards breathing warm air. The village moves without haste as baskets appear, Gourds clink, and clay pots wake to fire. You smile because your kitchen timer would file a complaint about this unrushed grace. Families begin the day with maize and early gathered grains, some local, others carried through trade, like quinoa in small careful bundles. Hands move with long memory as water meets ground meal in calm circles. You grin because your modern blender would ask for hazard pay here. Past a low stone wall, people sort squash blossoms, mesquite pods, and onions. The colors rest like a quiet palate awaiting heat. You snicker because your crisper drawer never manages this level of poetry. Near a metate, maize transforms beneath steady rhythm, and picky batter waits like a morning cloud, thin and silken, ready for hot stone. You chuckle because your nonstick pan would request emotional support after seeing this skill. Beans soak in a clay bowl whose rim shows fingerprints that never rushed the day. The water darkens as nutrients awaken, and the bowl holds silence with authority. You smile because your measuring cups would need therapy to reach this calm. At the domed horno, coals hum rather than roar as bread and tubers nestle inside. The scent of earth, ash, and sweetness drifts out. You grin because your oven light would ask for sunglasses in this glow. Nearby, people braid dry maize into ropes that hang like golden constellations across shaded beams. The braids count seasons while keeping kernels ready. You laugh softly because your snack shelf cannot keep anything safe for a week. In storage pits lined with clay, lids lift to reveal seeds that waited kindly in darkness, fragrant after long years. You chuckle because your pantry app never foresaw flavor surviving centuries of naps. Wild herbs rinse in wide bowls, later leaning into steaming water. Mint and sage scent the air like a friendly cloud, clearing the path in your head. You grin because your coffee mug realizes it has competition that sings lullabies. You help carry squash and beans toward a pot where the three sisters meet again, thickening without hurry into savory patience. You smile because your takeout menu just learned the meaning of commitment. Strips of venison dry above gentle smoke kissed with salt, darkening to mahogany and promising strength for winter. You chuckle because your fridge thinks it invented meal prep. Children shell maize with tiny steady motions, kernels tapping baskets like soft rain. You grin because your spreadsheet could never calculate this adorable productivity. On a water run to the well, gourds carry cool weight while sunlight trembles on the surface. Sand and stone help clarity return. You laugh gently because your water filter never looked this elegantly low-tech. Hands whisk blue corn into warm water for a toll, thickening into satin calm that invites slow sips. Historians still debate how far quinoa traveled by trade versus local analogs in northern kitchens. You smirk because your history podcast now wants a bowl. Chores pass like torches from one hand to another, ordered yet unclocked. You grin because your calendar app would take notes and then ask for a sabbatical. The stew simmers as beans soften, squash sweetens, roasted child's whisper, and maize lends a mellow backbone. Tiny bubbles blink like calm stars. You laugh because your smoke alarm thankfully sleeps through this meditation. A woman rolls picky into airy scrolls that stack like manuscripts, each sheet translucent enough for light to kiss. You smile because your sandwich bread just realized it lacks a resume. A tolle cools to perfect warmth, a small fire in your hands. Its sweetness remains sensible, its grain speaks clearly. You chuckle because your dessert spoon wants to switch teams. Corn husks wrap beans and herbs into tamales that steam like gifts without glitter. Their scent rests on your shoulder. You grin because your gift wrap never tasted this generous. Elders listen to sealed storage pits, telling of seeds waking after lifetimes in clay. Patience here feels like trustworthy science. You laugh softly because your alarm clock only understands the impatient variety. On a shaded step, you eat slowly while the village breathes evenly. Every flavor feels like a sentence in the language of soil and weather. You smile because your cookbook suddenly wants to add thank you notes. The courtyard tidies itself as ashes are saved, stones cooled, and tools returned. The meal becomes quiet strength folded into hours. You chuckle because your sink would file for overtime in this serenity. At the doorway, you pause and draw in the afterglow of cooking, a fragrance that smells of patience quietly becoming nourishment. The village breathes with an unhurried rhythm, steady as a heart that trusts its own pace. You grin because your smartwatch cannot invent a metric for this softness of relief. From the fields, baskets return empty, but will later go back full, carrying the pulse of cycles that look ordinary yet never fall into boredom. You laugh because your treadmill envies this view, and also the conversations it cannot have with wind. Your palms rest on the warm rim of a clay pot cooling after its labor. The surface hums faintly, as if whispering gratitude in the language of steam and spoon. You smile because your leftovers finally understand what they wanted to grow into. Shadows stretch as fire folds itself into embers, and the courtyard leans into its deeper quiet. Food now feels less like a duty completed and more like an evening settling into the bones. You chuckle because your inbox still insists on scheduling dinner, and of course, loses. You step away with the taste of blue corn lingering, a flavor that folds itself around your shoulders like woven cloth. The village balances work and rest without ceremony, holding the two as if they were the same breath. You grin because your to-do list, for once, seems to purr. If the air feels lighter, it is because patience has turned hunger into harmony. The day itself smiles, proud of the cleverness of well-tended food. You walk onward with that quiet glow in your chest, and you laugh because even your shoes seem honored to join this slow-cooked peace. The day drifts into a gentler rhythm as the village leans into the hum of hands at work. Smoke rises in ribbons, courtyards turning into open studios where craft replaces hurry. Each corner hums with patience, as though time itself has agreed to stay. You smile because your calendar would panic without a deadline, yet here the hours bend gracefully around people and their making. You step toward a loom where cotton threads stretch taut, pulled from fields tended with the same care as maize. Women sit upright, their fingers plucking colors from cochineal, wild plants, and minerals ground into powder. Patterns emerge like rivers touched by sunlight, quiet geometry speaking of mountains and stars. The shuttle slides with the hush of leaves brushing in wind. You grin because your sewing machine would blush at such elegance. At a nearby table, turquoise and shell are slowly coaxed into beads. A craftsman rubs each fragment against stone, turning rough edges into a surface that glows with its own light. Patience gathers in his hands as one shape follows another, until necklaces emerge, pieces meant to travel, whether as gifts of affection or as threads of trade linking distant lives. You chuckle because your jewelry box never knew such slow geography, where seashells once walked inland through hundreds of careful miles. Not far away, gourds are carved into vessels. Knives shave their skin in patient spirals, revealing smoothness beneath. Soon, brushes of mineral color will paint suns, spirals, and flowing designs across the round bodies. These vessels will cradle food, store seeds, or carry water through the heat of day. Yet beyond their function, they shimmer quietly as art disguised in everyday work. You smile because your water bottle feels almost shy beside such graceful labor. In the shade, clay rests in bowls, waiting. Children fetch water while elders knead the mixture, pressing rhythm into earth until it softens and breathes. From their hands rise jars, bowls, and alles forms, lifted from soil into durable grace. Fire will soon harden them in pits glowing beneath the ground. Some shine with polished slip, others carry black-painted designs. All remain both useful and beautiful. You grin because your kitchen cabinet holds no such stories. In another corner, feathers and fibers are bound into ornaments. Eagle plumes, heavy with dignity, mingle with the bright feathers of parrots, carried north through long trade routes. Green and red flashes shimmer in the light, proof that beauty can cross mountains and deserts, with nothing but patience and hands to guide it. You chuckle because your suitcase has never known such long and generous journeys. Nearby, obsidian is struck with careful taps, each flake falling like a petal loosened by wind. A blade slowly emerges, its edge so sharp it nearly disappears from sight, sharper than steel yet born only from stone and skill. It will serve in kitchen, workshop, or ritual, each cut carrying memory of distant origins. For the obsidian itself has traveled across valleys and plains, passed hand to hand, story to story. You smile because your multi-tool suddenly feels clumsy, almost over-designed. The sun shifts and baskets rise into view. Women weave yucca, willow, and grasses, their fingers knowing every curve by heart. Each basket coils into a quiet map of rivers, mountains, and constellations, while still ready to hold corn or beans. The scent of fresh fibers dries in the air, clean and wholesome. You grin because your storage bins never whispered like this. Not far away, artisans carve cottonwood roots into animals, spirits, and symbols of rain. Each figure becomes a reminder, a teacher, or an offering. The grain bends into meaning with every stroke. You laugh softly because your figurines have never carried such weight. Beyond, shell beads string into belts that rattle softly. You sense the seed of traditions where patterns will later record treaties and memory. Even here, adornment already carries meaning. You smile because your notepad never felt this ceremonial. Returning to the loom, you see colors deepen. Red from cochineal burns like embers. Indigo whispers night. The cloth looks like sky folded into fabric, a landscape of thread. You grin because your blanket now feels unambitious. Nearby, copper bells polish to soft shine. Afternoon light glints in their curves, and when shaken, they tinkle like fragments of sunset turned to sound. Once traded from Mesoamerica, they prove connections stretching far. The music is light, never demanding. You chuckle because your alarm clock never sang this kindly. Every tool shows care. Wooden handles smoothed by years, blades resharpened, gourds patched with resin. Nothing is disposable. Everything carries history. You smile because your gadget drawer feels impatient and ungrateful. On a plaster wall, murals still glow faintly spirals, animals, motifs of dream and season. Some remain unexplained, meaning slipping from scholars' hands. You grin because mystery itself is the artist here, while museums struggle with riddles. You hear the brushing of fibers spun into thread. Cotton and yucca twist into cord, strength born from delicacy. The spindle's rhythm is a lullaby for the hands. You chuckle because your earbuds can't compete with this music. As dusk nears, finished crafts gather in shade. Pots line up like calm guardians, baskets stack like towers, cloth folds like horizons, ornaments hang like light. The air feels like a gallery without pretension, each piece serving both body and spirit. You smile because your museum ticket line could learn humility here. A whisper tells of pots buried centuries ago that still sing faintly when tapped, fire leaving a voice in clay. The idea hovers between myth and truth, reminding you that beauty can hold secrets. You grin because your cupboard never hummed when touched. The sun softens and you feel enclosed by a symphony of making. Here, necessity flowers into artistry without needing labels. Function and beauty hold hands, not rivals but companions. You laugh softly because your to-do list cannot carve or weave peace into existence. You step back to the village center. Tools are stored, fabrics folded, baskets stacked. The courtyard exhales into evening, leaving behind a day solid in clay, stone, fiber, and feather. You carry the glow of craft with you, remembering how even the smallest gesture can hold eternity. You smile because your own hands feel gentler now, ready to carry their rhythm into rest. You step into a wide courtyard where the afternoon light softens across packed earth and tall earthen walls. The warmth is steady, but not harsh, the air carrying a quiet gentleness. Shadows cling to the edges, not sharp but slow, spreading like ink in water. The courtyard feels both open and enclosed, a pause inside the rhythm of the village. For a moment, you imagine stepping into a dream without urgency, where the hours stretch like corridors of light and silence. The Mississippian people often raised great earthen mounds that lifted homes and public spaces above the flatlands. You picture such forms rising beyond the courtyard, built with patience, each basket of soil carried, poured, and smoothed. From the ground below, sunlight drapes itself across the slope, shadows sliding into deliberate lines. The thought of so many hands shaping such platforms, generation after generation, feels less like labor than ritual. The earth was taught to breathe with human life. Along the edge of the courtyard, the wall casts a ribbon of shadow across the ground. It stretches so slowly that its movement is nearly invisible, sliding grain by grain with the sun's steady arc. The shifting light feels purposeful, as though the builders once choreographed the patterns to unfold through the day. Archaeologists have noted that some Mississippian houses were built with windows aligned to the solstice or equinox. At those exact moments, a shaft of sunlight would cut through the opening and strike the courtyard floor with precise brilliance. Such alignments reveal remarkable care, blending architecture and sky without the aid of modern instruments. And yet, not every alignment can be explained. Certain windows open toward parts of the heavens where no significant star or planet appears. Perhaps they traced subtler lunar cycles, patterns now forgotten. Perhaps they honored quiet intervals in the sky, moments where nothing shone but the emptiness itself. The idea is oddly comforting that mystery was left in place, woven into the walls not only to measure but to remind. You imagine the people who once lived here, sitting in this very courtyard centuries ago. They too must have watched light slide across the clay, listening as the wind moved softly between the mounds, carrying both silence and meaning in its breath. As you stroll across the space, your footsteps mark the dust briefly before softening into nothing. The walls around you rise steady, woven of wattle and daub, surfaces smoothed by hand. Sunlight grazes them unevenly, making some patches glow while others rest in shadow. You think of the balance these communities kept, blending practicality with subtle grace. Shelters were built to hold not just people, but calm itself. The dappling feels like candlelight, except the sun provides the glow. Nature, you realize, was the first architect, slow, patient, attentive. The stillness sharpens your senses. You notice the rustle of leaves from a nearby tree, leaning over the wall. A bird hops along a branch, its shadow mingling with patterns on the ground. The silence is not absence, but presence, filling the space like water in a vessel. It invites you to breathe slowly, letting the courtyard set the rhythm of your chest. These courtyards once held daily life. Families crossed their floors, children tracing shapes in the dust where shadows lay, turning the sun's arc into play. Elders may have sat in shaded corners, weaving stories that wandered like rivers. You can almost hear the low murmur of tasks, grinding corn, shaping clay, weaving baskets, though now all of it feels like background music softened with distance. The materials themselves shaped comfort. Walls of earth and wood absorbed warmth and released it slowly, the way a clay mug holds tea long after pouring. The soil underfoot stays cool even in afternoon sun, as though it remembers the night and saves a portion. Such design, whether or not it was named as design, made life resilient and graceful. It was simply living well with the elements. Some courtyards seem to hold acoustic qualities too. A word spoken in one corner might carry across with surprising clarity, while in another it disappears altogether. Perhaps this was unintentional, but some researchers wonder if spaces were shaped to amplify certain sounds for ceremony. Chants or calls could resonate, binding voices into communal rhythm. You tilt your head, half expecting to hear such an echo, though the present offers only a hush of air. As the afternoon stretches, shadows grow long across the ground. The courtyard becomes a vast, slow clock, marking time not in minutes, but in drifting shapes. The pace feels generous, almost indulgent, as if time itself reclines. Overhead, the sky thickens to a deeper blue, already preparing for evening. The light wraps the village in a blanket, smooth and steady, easing it toward rest. You imagine reaching for a cool drink perhaps, water infused with herbs, as ancient gatherings sometimes offered. A smile tugs at you when you picture offering iced coffee to the Mississippians. No ice, no coffee. Only the steady warmth of corn drinks and herbal teas. Yet the comfort is universal. Hospitality has always found its way into cups. Still, the riddle of the windows lingers. Why would a wall open to a star, to the curve of the moon, or to emptiness itself? The question feels less like something to solve, and more like something to feel a breeze against your cheek, light brushing across clay. Perhaps the alignments were never meant as answers, but as reminders, to look upward, to notice the slow rhythms of the heavens, to carry their pulse quietly into daily life. Some truths were left unsaid, secrets intentionally folded into earth and wood, so they would be remembered in silence rather than explained. You take one last walk across the courtyard, your steps slow, your breath steady. The wall's shadow has grown long, stretching past your reach like a thread pulling into evening. Around you, the space feels both ancient and immediate, holding a balance of light and shade without urgency. You pause and exhale, realizing that for this moment you too are aligned not to solstice or star, but to the stillness of the present. The courtyard gathers you into its quiet, steady as the ground itself, as though it had always been waiting to hold you in this way. The day drifts slowly toward afternoon, and the village begins to soften under a gentle warmth. You step into the open plaza, a wide space at the center of community life, where the sky feels endless above and the earth lies smooth beneath your feet. The breeze arrives like a careful visitor, moving across your skin with kindness, carrying the faint scent of earth, maize, and distant wood smoke. Each gust seems to lift a little of the day's weight, scattering it softly among the tall grasses and earthen mounds surrounding the open square. The plazas of ancient Native American civilizations were designed not only as gathering places, but as the living hearts of their communities. They connected dwellings, ceremonial mounds, and pathways like threads in a woven cloth. You can imagine families walking together here, their steps unhurried, their laughter echoing gently in the wide space. The earth beneath the plaza was often packed smooth and carefully maintained, ensuring that the center of life remained open and inviting, a stage for both ritual and daily simplicity. History shows that in Mississippian towns like Cahokia, plazas were vast, stretching hundreds of meters across. They formed the heart of gatherings, feasts, and ceremonies. Even in smaller villages, plazas were built to scale, always providing a place where sky and earth seemed to meet. Now, as a gentle breeze stirs across the imagined space, the plaza feels alive, breathing in slow rhythm with the people who once walked here. There is an enduring mystery in how these plazas were arranged. Some follow cardinal directions, pathways stretching towards sunrise or sunset. Others align with celestial events, echoing the courtyards and windows you observed earlier. Scholars debate whether these open areas were purely practical for social gatherings or deliberately designed to connect daily life with cosmic cycles. The question drifts like the wind itself present, yet without insistence. You picture yourself at the center of the plaza, legs folded as long shadows stretch outward from surrounding mounds. The wind through distant trees rises and falls like a slow chant. Though empty in your imagination, the plaza holds echoes of countless footsteps, voices, and ceremonies. You recall that during great events, Hundreds of people might have filled the space, carrying baskets, clay vessels, or offerings. Drums would have pulsed against the earthen walls, sending deep rhythm across the plaza. Now, in quiet reflection, you hear only subtler traces. The hum of insects on the breeze, grasses whispering at the edges, air shifting gently across the open space. All urgency dissolves, leaving only stillness, carried by the afternoon wind, a peace that lingers long after the ceremonies have ended. The breeze shifts direction, brushing against your hair and clothing, and you realize how important such winds must have been in daily life. In the heat of summer, air currents cooled the plazas, making them bearable for long gatherings. In the winter, breezes carried the sense of hearth fires and kitchens, signaling warmth waiting nearby. The air was more than weather. It was a companion to community rhythms. Even now, you feel it carry with it the presence of those long past, as though the wind remembers voices better than stone or soil. An unusual detail sometimes noted in archaeological records is the presence of small depressions or carefully leveled sections within plazas. Some believe these were used for games, such as chunky, where polished stones were rolled across the ground and spears were thrown to land closest to them. Others think these slight shapes might have had symbolic meaning, designed to guide ceremonies or processions. The truth remains uncertain, and perhaps that uncertainty is what makes the plazas feel even more alive. They hold secrets that move quietly, the way shadows move across the ground without ever announcing themselves. The air continues to move gently, never too strong, never too still. You notice how the breeze seems to gather at the edges of the plaza, moving through openings between structures, before drifting away again into the tall fields beyond. The balance between open sky and enclosing architecture gives the plaza its unique character. It is both a room and a landscape, both inside and outside. In this duality lies its calmness, a space where contrasts are not in conflict, but in harmony. As you walk slowly across the plaza, each step steady and unhurried, you imagine how the people once carried water, jars from nearby rivers, how they paused to speak softly in the shade, how they gathered together in small clusters. The plaza was never only about ceremony. It was about daily life, too. Children may have played here in the afternoons, chasing shadows across the ground as the breeze lifted their laughter into the air. Elders may have sat in circles, passing time with stories that drifted as slowly as clouds overhead. You sense that the space absorbed all of this, becoming a kind of memory vessel that still breathes today. The breeze shifts again, cooler now as the sun begins to slide further across the sky. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the current of air wash gently over you. It feels like a hand brushing across your face, a reminder of the care that flows through the smallest details of the world. Even without words, the wind carries meaning, and the plaza listens. You realize that the balance of openness and structure, of light and shadow, of silence and sound, was not just design but philosophy. It reflected a way of living where the community and the cosmos shared the same rhythm. You open your eyes once more, and the plaza stretches quietly around you. The air remains kind, the sky expansive, the ground solid and calm beneath your feet. The moment feels endless, like an afternoon without obligations, only the slow companionship of the breeze. You breathe deeply, exhaling into the openness, and the plaza accepts your breath as if it has always been part of its story. The day continues, the plaza unchanged yet always alive. And as you walk slowly toward the edge, you glance back one last time, noticing how the breeze stirs the dust into soft spirals, disappearing almost as soon as they form. They leave no mark, only a feeling light, fleeting but profoundly gentle. You move toward a low circle of light, where small candles and tallow lamps glow in the dusk, and the air feels like folded fabric warmed by memory. Each flicker makes the clay and woven mats seem alive, as if the objects remember stories too. You smile because even the moths appear to listen politely. You settle on a mat near the light, letting your shoulders unclench while the village hush deepens. A stick scratches patterns in the dust, producing a rhythm that holds attention without urgency. You laugh quietly because the stick functions like an ancient stylus. On a very relaxed deadline, that the Aztec often gathered in the evening to sing and recite myths explaining the movement of sky and river. The verses connected harvests, lineage, and ritual in one flowing breath, shaping memory and identity in the soft dark. You imagine voices warmed by embers and hush. A storyteller enters the candlelight with patience rather than urgency. Their hands describe shapes in the air as the tale unwinds like thread, guiding listeners through landscapes of sky and corn. You grin because the gestures could teach modern presenters calm stage presence. You listen to a tale about the origins of maize, how ancestors coaxed kernels from wild grasses with care, a story braided with real agricultural inventions that supported civilizations. The narrative is gentle yet factual, and you sense how food and myth became daily comfort. You chuckle because the corn in your kitchen now feels historically popular. Candlelight softens faces into gentle relief, and the shadows of listeners mingle with those of pots, ropes, and mats, forming a slow, shifting constellation across the courtyard floor. The scene moves like a living tapestry, pausing with each breath, each flicker of flame. You smile because the courtyard functions as a quiet museum, one that never asks for a ticket, only presence. Some stories carry symbols and shorthand woven into songs and drum patterns fragments that puzzle scholars even now. Perhaps they record names, ritual steps, or meanings long forgotten. The gaps and uncertainties make the tales feel alive, open rather than closed, and you laugh softly at the thought of ancient archives with missing pages, a library that never completes itself. The storyteller's voice moves with care, never rushing, modulating not to excite but to soothe. Each word falls like a small stone into a slow-moving river, nudging the current without splash, shaping the flow of attention rather than demanding it. You feel your thoughts fold inward, your mind settling into the rhythm of the courtyard. You grin because this quiet presence, the unhurried, deliberate cadence feels like the most effective app you've ever used. One that teaches calm through story rather than instruction. As the narrative moves through characters who are more landscape than person, you picture mountains that listen and rivers that remember. The metaphors feel literal because people once relied on weather and terrain. You smile because the scenes follow the pagination of seasons rather than chapters. Much storytelling included musical accompaniment flutes and small drums, setting a steady pulse for the words to rest upon. A drumbeat makes time seem more generous, slowing the world by a few heartbeats. You laugh softly because the drum has mastered relaxation techniques. Storytellers acted as living libraries, preserving genealogies and place knowledge that written records often miss. Memory remained alive through performance. You chuckle because your phone's notes app would envy such rehearsal. Some narratives include repeated, nonsensical syllables or glyph-like marks, resisting translation, perhaps mnemonic anchors or encoded knowledge for select listeners. You smile because secrets tucked into sound make the world feel respectfully complicated. The storyteller pauses to mention seashells carried inland via trade, reminding listeners how goods and stories traveled together. Objects from coasts introduce new images into inland narratives, expanding memory in gentle increments. You grin because a shell once crossed as many borders as a long conversation. A bowl of warm, bitter chocolate might have been shared while tales unfolded, linking palate and story, making abstract ideas feel tangible. You laugh because modern hot chocolate cannot compete with such ritualized stillness. You notice the small gestures of listeners. A foot shifting, a hand smoothing a blanket, eyes closing for an image. These motions form a choreography honoring the storyteller with collective calm. You smile because the audience is perfected. Mindful applause. The speaker references places where the movement of Venus or moon phases guided planting and ceremony. Celestial observation, anchored memory, and sustained crops and calendars alike. You chuckle because the sky doubles as clock and poet. The pace never quickens. It deepens, folding meaning into detail until each line ties past to present. The narrative invites return visits like a familiar path. You grin because repetition is a calm teacher, not a bore. Some stories were purposely ambiguous, offering multiple readings depending on the listener and season. Meaning shifted gently over time, and the tales adapted like living organisms. You smile because mutability here functions as kindness rather than error. Lamp flames bend slightly in the breeze, casting the storyteller's shadow across the wall. The moving shadow becomes another silent narrator, adding texture without words. You chuckle because the shadow clearly enjoys its cameo dot as the hour deepens. The tales drift toward a gentle close, not demanding finality, but offering quiet continuation. Listeners settle into their mats, the courtyard holding them like a careful parent, each breath absorbed into the calm. You smile because endings here feel like invitations, not farewells, gentle nudges to carry the story forward in your own time. Rising slowly, you feel the residue of story in your chest, warm and steady like a stone left in sunlight. The village exhales into softer rhythms, its sounds muted and patient. The night will guard these narratives, returning them in fragments through dreams. And memory. You chuckle softly, imagining your pockets happily cradling such small, warm treasures. Stepping away from the circle of candlelight, you move toward earthen walls washed in pale moon glow. With each step, the stories fold into your breath, slowing your pace, softening your awareness. Undeciphered symbols and familiar songs return as companions, quiet and patient, reminders of human presence and care across time. You smile deeply, aware that the night itself offers company unhurried, generous, and gently luminous. You wander slowly toward the heart of the village as the sun eases into its descent, painting every wall and woven awning with soft gold. The market is no longer loud or hurried, but instead exhales a final, gentle rhythm, like the day releasing its last notes. You smile because even the baskets look as though they are winding down. The air carries the faint sweetness of maize bread cooling, and the scent drifts like a blanket through rows of handmade goods. Pottery glows with captured sunlight, each curve holding memory of earth and fire. You laugh softly because the jars almost seem to wink as they tilt in the waning light. The Inca were known for their evening markets, where textiles of deep red and blue rested beside clay cups and carved wooden spoons. Exchanges were less about bargaining and more about weaving connections across valleys. The hush of twilight made every trade feel ceremonial, steady, and calm, like a bow given at the end of a quiet song. You notice the slow shuffle of feet. The way sandals stir up dust that catches light and then falls, glittering briefly like fireflies. Nothing here hurries. Every motion has the weight of patience. You smile because the ground itself seems to approve of this relaxed choreography. A woman folds cloth into precise layers, each textile glowing with intricate patterns that echo mountains, rivers, and sky. These woven images carry history as steady as spoken memory, telling stories through color and shape. You chuckle because the fabric looks like a very polite map that refuses to get lost. Clay bowls sit in even lines, their rims catching the fading sun. The shine on them is not artificial. It is the quiet sheen of hands smoothing surfaces over countless days. You grin because the bowls appear to be listening to each other, whispering small secrets of earth and water. Historians still debate the roots of long-distance trade networks. Some believe llamas carried goods across high passes, while others suggest more subtle paths through valleys and riverways. You enjoy the thought that even maps leave space for mystery, and you laugh softly at how ancient traders might smile. At modern confusion, amid the calm displays, some items stand out: shells from distant coasts, bright stones from lands far beyond sight. Archaeologists have uncovered such objects far from their origins, yet their journey remains a mystery. You smile because the market retains a puzzle, gently left unfinished. A low murmur of voices threads through the stalls, a song without chorus. Steady and unhurried, people move with care, handling bowls, cloth, and shells with both purpose and reverence. Exchanges are measured. Gratitude lingers longer than the objects themselves. Even the passing of a simple clay cup feels like a soft ceremony. You chuckle at the thought, realizing that here, commerce carries the weight of story as much as the weight of goods, and every gesture matters beyond mere trade. You picture Inca merchants carrying woven pouches filled with small goods, traveling through valleys where clouds moved like slow caravans above. The market reflects those journeys, each item a reminder of footsteps laid patiently across stone paths. You grin because even the sky seems to have been a participant in these exchanges. A faint breeze runs through the stalls, lifting corners of cloth and carrying with it the earthy perfume of pottery and maize. The air itself feels woven, each thread carrying sound, scent, and color. You smile because the evening breeze seems to enjoy playing curator for this temporary museum. Lanterns of simple oil begin to flicker to life, casting round pools of amber across baskets of beans, corn, and peppers. The light is neither bright nor dim. It is the perfect balance between presence and absence. You chuckle because the shadows look like patient customers, waiting politely in line. Some stalls remain empty, their keepers already gone, and yet their absence adds to the serenity. The open spaces feel like pauses in a sentence, encouraging reflection rather than loss. You grin because silence here behaves like punctuation, gentle and precise. You recall that markets also functioned as gathering places where news and stories traveled faster than goods, carrying echoes of distant villages into this shared space. Each word exchanged was itself a currency, binding communities across time and terrain. You laugh softly because gossip, too, becomes history when enough sunsets pass over it. Your eyes rest on a pile of gourds shaped into containers, polished to smoothness that reflects the final flames of day. They look like suns in miniature, captured and set upon cloth. You smile because each gourd seems to glow with its own tiny sunset. Children wander slowly through the closing aisles, holding small tokens or baskets of fruit, their steps unhurried, their eyes still curious. They remind you that the market is as much a classroom as a store, teaching values of patience, respect, and balance. You chuckle because the children appear to negotiate with shadows rather than sellers. The evening deepens into soft blue, and the market's last exchanges wing to gentle conclusions. Hands meet in firm but quiet handshakes, bows dip with respect. No coins clink, no hurry intrudes, only gestures of acknowledgement and trust. You grin because in this hush, even the smallest motion feels weighty, as though silence itself is a form of currency. You notice how the market embodies more than trade. It mirrors the life of a community that cherishes both utility and beauty, necessity and ritual. Each bowl, woven cloth, and polished shell carries two lives, one practical, the other woven with story. You smile at the realization that this space is a quiet archive, memory disguised as commerce, holding generations in its rhythm and careful arrangement. As you walk away, the market folds into twilight, lanterns glowing faintly like stars, taking their places overhead. Stalls blur into shadow, yet the memory of texture, color, and the measured pace of hands lingers in your breath. You laugh softly because even the empty paths seem to hum with quiet gratitude, guiding you forward gently. The evening feels alive, with presence, yet unhurried, carrying you calmly toward night, and leaving a lingering sense that every small gesture here matters profoundly. The evening slips gently into a softer tone, as though the sky has decided to speak in whispers. Clouds gather without hurry, spreading like a blanket across the horizon, and the first drops of rain fall with the tenderness of a lullaby. You feel the air cool slightly, carrying the scent of damp earth, and you smile because even the atmosphere seems to pause in appreciation. The Hopi people knew this rhythm well. Their homes, built with care and patience, were topped with roofs woven from reeds, branches, and layered leaves. These living materials welcomed the rain rather than resisting it, letting droplets fall in patterns that played like music across the night. You laugh softly because the roofs seem less like protection and more like instruments in a natural orchestra. As the rain settles, each surface adds its own voice. Thick leaves catch drops that gather before sliding down, creating a slow, deliberate rhythm. Thin reeds tap lightly, producing higher notes like a gentle flute. Clay walls deepen the sound, giving resonance that hums like the earth itself. You grin because the village has become a natural concert hall, tuned perfectly by rain. The rain does not hurry. It falls with patience, inviting stillness. Families stay inside, listening rather than speaking, absorbing each drop as one might. Absorb warmth. You smile because here, silence is full. It is attentive, complete. Hopi communities often regarded rain as both blessing and message. Every drop linked sky and soil, a reminder of balance and renewal. Roofs carefully woven became more than shelter. They were quiet bridges between heaven and earth. You chuckle because even the architecture seems to converse with clouds. Archaeologists have found that some ancient leaves preserve tiny imprints from rainstorms centuries ago, traces left like signatures. You grin because it feels as though the clouds themselves were artists, leaving their quiet marks across time. The rain deepens now, a slow crescendo, but never harsh. The ground receives each drop with grace, darkening in color and shining faintly in the dim light. You imagine walking across the soft earth, hearing the muffled splash of your own footsteps joining the symphony. You laugh softly because even your presence would be only another gentle note in this ongoing song. Inside, small fires continue to glow, casting warm light against walls. The crackle of wood blends with the steady patter on the roof, creating a duet of elements. Fire hums, rain whispers, and together they weave a balance of warmth and coolness, sound and silence. You smile because opposites here do not clash. They lean into each other like old friends. Some stories say that rain was seen as a prayer answered, a sign that the spirits listened and responded. People would sit quietly, giving thanks, not in words, but in presence. The soft rhythm on their roofs became a language of gratitude, gentle and sincere. You grin because gratitude itself feels like a kind of rainfall, covering everything evenly and without judgment. You imagine lying beneath such a roof, eyes closed, letting the sound settle over you like a blanket. Each drop seems to fall closer and closer to your own heartbeat until rhythm and body align. You chuckle because it feels as though the rain has been waiting for this exact harmony. The village outside glows with reflections, puddles forming mirrors that double the lantern. Light. Pathways shine. Walls glisten, and even small stones carry a sheen of water that makes them look alive. You smile because the rain does not erase the village. It refreshes it, as though polishing a memory dot in the quiet. You think of how every storm carries its own character. Some arrive swiftly, with sharpness. Others, like this one, arrive slowly, inviting calm. Both leave traces, but it is the gentle rains that linger longest, embedding themselves in roof, earth, and heart. You laugh softly because you realize softness is sometimes stronger than force. The Hopi listened to these patterns as guides. They could tell seasons by the weight of water and stories by the rhythm of drops. For them, rain was never random. It was a dialogue written across sky and ground. You grin because the very weather became a teacher, never rushing its lessons. You picture children pressing their hands to the damp walls, feeling the coolness seep through, giggling as the drops tapped above them. Perhaps they traced little streams with their fingers as the water trickled down leaves. These small games were not separate from survival. They were lessons in noticing, in listening, in honoring. You smile because play, too, is a form of respect. The roofs, now heavy with water, still hold firm, their interlaced layers guiding droplets away without collapse. This patient design reflects centuries of observation, trial, and gentle mastery of natural materials. You laugh softly because simplicity often hides great wisdom, and every leaf woven overhead proves it. As the night deepens, the rain lightens once more, retreating into mist. The village exhales, roofs dripping softly like cooling kettles after a long pour. The ground glows with moisture, releasing its fragrance into the crisp air. You smile because even endings here are not abrupt. They fade like lullabies, never quite gone. Some rooftops still hold small pools of water, shimmering in lantern glow like tiny ponds above the houses. These small reservoirs will vanish by morning, but for now they reflect stars that peek shyly through parting clouds. You grin because even the heavens seem curious enough to join the rooftops tonight. The last drops slide slowly down, each one audible in the hush that follows. Inside homes, families drift toward rest, their breathing soon matching the softened rhythm outside. The roofs, faithful and calm, have carried the music of the rain across another night, leaving behind only peace. You laugh softly because it feels as though the village has been sung to sleep by the sky itself. And so, with roofs glistening, earth darkened, and air fresh with renewal, the scene closes. The rain has done its work not by force but by tenderness, reminding all who listen that calmness is its own form of abundance. You smile, letting that thought settle like the final drop of the storm quiet, whole and endlessly gentle. The day softens into its final colors, and the lakes, wide and patient, gather the sky on their still surfaces. Twilight lingers, painting the horizon with faint purples, fading golds, and a trace of silver where the first star dares to appear. You breathe slowly, watching how the water does not resist, but accepts each shade, holding the sky like a quiet mirror. The Taino people, whose villages once spread across the Caribbean, often turn to these waters at dusk. Small rafts, gently crafted from wood and reeds, drifted out not for fishing or trade, but for observation and calm. Sitting upon them, they allowed the water to settle around them, creating a moment of stillness and reflection. You smile because the act feels less like movement and more like resting within the lake's embrace. As the rafts drifted, reflections deepened. Trees along the shore bent downward, their images doubled and softened. Lantern flames placed on. The rafts added more light, small golden circles trembling on the surface. You grin softly because the lake seemed to weave earth, fire, and sky into a single, living canvas. Taino communities valued the balance between village life and the waters that sustained them. Lakes were places of gathering, ritual, and contemplation. Some evenings, groups released several rafts at once, each carrying herbs, fruits, or carved offerings, creating the impression of stars descending to visit the earth. The mystery of certain lakes remains. Scholars note that a few align with constellations. Above, their curves and bays reflecting star patterns in the sky. Whether by design, coincidence, or cosmic recognition, the question lingers gently. You smile, letting the mystery rest, understanding that some questions soothe more than they demand answers. As twilight deepens, the air cools softly, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint sweetness of flowers, closing for the night. Frogs begin their quiet chorus at the water's edge, each call echoing gently across the mirrored surface. Fireflies add their light, flickering among the reeds, their reflections doubling upon the lake. You grin, because the night seems to paint itself twice, once above and once below. The Taino believed lakes connected the living with ancestors and spirits. Looking into the water at twilight was not merely seeing a reflection, but touching a parallel realm flowing alongside daily life. The stillness of the lake offered not silence, but presence, a reminder that unseen worlds are always near. You chuckle softly, realizing even the hush of water carries a voice. Rafts drifted slowly, sometimes carrying children watching the sky darken, sometimes elders whispering prayers. No hurry marked these journeys. The drifting became part of meditation itself. Bodies swayed gently, minds quieted, and stars sharpened above with each passing minute. You smiled because even time seemed to slow, as if the lake invited the world to breathe more gently. Taino rafts were works of quiet artistry. Bound with vines and shaped by hands that knew the weight of wood, these small vessels held steady, even on wider waters. The craftsmanship was both functional and graceful, reflecting the patience of the lakes themselves. You grin softly because a raft built with such care becomes more than an object. It becomes a companion. Shadows lengthen, and the lake becomes darker, holding only faint lines of fading color along its rim. The horizon glows for a final moment before surrendering to the softness of night. The water accepts the transition easily, its reflections shifting to starlight, its ripples glimmering with silver. You laugh quietly, because the lake never resists change. It simply reflects whatever the sky chooses to give. Some Taino legends spoke of waters that carried messages in their reflection, signs for harvest, omens for journeys, or blessings for families. Whether or not these tales carried specific truths, they offered calm assurance that water and sky remained in harmony. You smile because the thought itself feels like a kind of blessing, a promise that balance is always possible. As twilight drifts into true night, you imagine yourself upon one of these rafts, lying back against woven reeds. The water holds you. Gently, the raft creaks softly, and above you the stars appear brighter with each passing breath. Reflections ripple below you, creating the sense that you float between two skies, one above, infinite and vast, and one below, tender and close. You grin softly, because this in-between world feels like a dream you never wish to leave. The frogs continue their chorus, fireflies flicker, and the air cools further. Every sound softens over the wide water, absorbed and reflected. Even your own breathing quiets, drawn into the lake's rhythm. You smile because here, quiet is not absence. It is fullness, presence, and rest. The mystery of the star-shaped lakes lingers. Were the Taino aware of these patterns? Did they map the heavens upon the earth, or did the earth reflect the sky on its own? Scholars search, but no definitive answer emerges. You laugh softly, because the beauty of the reflection is enough. Explanation would only disturb the perfect silence. Your raft drifts toward shore, reeds brushing the surface as fireflies cluster, their lights bright and guiding. The land waits patiently, firm underfoot, carrying the cool scent of night blooming flowers. You smile because even returning feels gentle, not abrupt. The villagers once stepped carefully from raft to earth, leaving offerings on the water and trusting the current to carry them onward. They walked slowly back to their homes, where firelight welcomed them into walls warmed by stone and wood. You grin softly, realizing that nothing here is rushed, not the drift, not the return, not even the quiet act of leaving beauty behind. The lake remains as they depart, reflecting stars without. Effort, keeping its secrets in shadows. It holds the quiet rituals, the laughter of children, the prayers of elders, and the glow of lanterns long extinguished. You laugh gently, because the water remembers everything, but never in haste. It remembers as twilight remembers, slowly, endlessly, tenderly dot, and so the twilight reflections deepen into night, and the lakes remain still. Their waters cradle the sky, their surfaces glow with stars, and their edges hum with the quiet voices of life. You breathe deeply, letting the image settle within you like a soft mirror, carrying both earth and sky in perfect calm. The evening settles with a hush, as though the village itself exhales after a long, slow day. Shadows stretch along earthen walls, and the last glimmers of twilight give way to a deeper, softer blue. Within simple homes, lights begin to glow flickers. Of fire, faint embers, small lamps made of clay, each spreading a circle of warmth. You breathe gently, letting this picture settle, because it feels like an invitation to rest. Among the Maya, evenings often unfolded in a rhythm of calm rituals. Families and neighbors gathered not in noisy celebration, but in shared stillness. Herbs, leaves, and cacao seeds were carefully prepared, each motion deliberate. Leaves crushed with stone, cacao ground into fine powder, herbs wrapped and tied. You smile softly because every gesture felt like a prayer, a reminder that peace was cultivated, not stumbled upon. A steady fire glowed at the center, smoke curling upward, sparks floating like fleeting stars. Around it, clay vessels filled with water and herbs began to simmer, releasing earthy fragrances that mingled with the smoke. The air thickened with comfort, carrying scents that eased thought into stillness. You grin gently, because even before a sip reached your lips, the tea had already begun to settle the mind. Cacao held profound value among the Maya, serving both nourishment and ritual. Brewed with maize, honey, or herbs, it became more than refreshment. It linked the earthly and the divine. Sharing the drink by evening fire affirmed connection, a quiet communion with the world and with one another. You chuckle quietly because even the simplest sip became a celebration of belonging. A gentle mystery lingered in the recipes themselves. Some herbal blends, carefully passed through generations, were never written, never shared beyond trusted circles. Ingredients and effects remained hidden, preserved only through story and memory. You smile, letting the thought linger, because some comforts are meant to live in the hands of the past. Firelight stretched across walls and faces, painting everything in soft gold. Shadows flickered, curved and fluid, never harsh. Children sat, quietly, lulled by the rhythm of preparation, the rustle of herbs, and the bubbling of clay pots. You grin softly, because even silence here carried layers of steady, unhurried life. The warmth of the tea spread slowly, from hands holding the cup to chest, to arms, to the very rhythm of breathing. Each sip seemed to settle something deeper, as though worries and restlessness could dissolve into steam. The drink was not hurried. It was taken in pauses, in long breaths between, allowing taste and warmth to merge with thought. You laugh gently, because the tea taught patience without ever saying a word. Lanterns made from clay and filled with oil flickered in corners, casting circles of gentle light upon woven mats and wooden beams. Their glow was steady, neither too bright nor too dim. They created a sense of closeness, of protection, of safety that deepened the night's quiet. You smile, because this light felt alive, breathing gently alongside those who sat near it. Some evenings included soft chanting, not loud or demanding, but rhythmic and low, blending with the crackle of fire. These sounds, repeated slowly, created an almost dreamlike rhythm. The night seemed to hum with their presence, as though the air itself joined the ritual. You grin because the chants were not only heard but felt, like ripples that moved softly through the skin and into the heart. Scholars, note that Mayan homes were often arranged around shared courtyards, spaces that allowed families to gather in evenings like this. Courtyards became open rooms, roofs of stars above, fires below. The design itself encouraged connection, each home a thread in a larger circle. You chuckle softly, because architecture itself seemed to remind people to be together, to rest together, to dream together. In the hush between words and chants, you imagine lifting a clay cup, feeling its warmth against your palms. The tea is dark, earthy, touched with sweetness. Steam rises and curls, meeting the night air. With each sip, time slows further, until only the warmth remains, stretching across the body like a soft blanket. You smile gently, because nothing more is needed. Tea, fire, and quiet company. The hidden recipes linger as mystery. What combinations of herbs could heal both body and spirit? Which leaves soothed the heart? Which seeds calmed the breath? We do not know them all, and perhaps we are not meant to. Some comforts belong only to memory, to the warmth of vanished nights. You grin softly, because mystery itself becomes another kind of tea, steeping within the imagination. The fire settles. Lower, its glow turning from gold to red, its crackle softer, its warmth more intimate. Lanterns flicker once, then steady again, their flames mirrored faintly in cups and vessels. Shadows move slowly across the walls, as if they too were tired and ready to rest. You laugh gently, because even the fire seems to know when enough has been given. The Maya ended their days with such quiet rituals, letting the body and mind drift into balance before sleep. No rush marked the closing of the day. Instead, warmth, taste, light, and silence wove together into a tapestry of calm. You smile, because the evening does not end. It simply softens into night. You imagine yourself now, sitting among them, holding a cup, listening to the fire. You feel the steam rise to your face, smell the herbs mixing with the smoke. Around you, soft lights glow, voices murmur in low tones, and silence stretches between each moment. You grin gently, because in this space, nothing is asked of you, except to rest. The tea finishes slowly, cups emptied, fires burning low. The air grows cooler, but the body remains warm, wrapped in both drink and presence. The lanterns flicker one last time before being dimmed, their light lingering even in memory. You chuckle softly, because even darkness feels gentle when preceded by warmth. And so the evening tea and warm lights carry the day into rest, soothing both spirit and body, wrapping the night in comfort. You breathe deeply, letting the memory of warmth remain within you, steady and calm, as though each sip of tea were still traveling gently through your veins. The night deepens, and the moon begins its slow climb across the sky. Silver light spills over the roofs of quiet homes, softening every angle and edge until the village seems to dissolve into a dreamlike glow. The air is cooler now, carrying the scent of damp earth, woven mats, and faint smoke from earlier fires. You breathe slowly, letting your mind settle into this gentle picture. The Aztec villages, spread across valleys and plains, often came alive, not with noise, but with calm presence under the moon. Pathways of earth, sometimes marked with smooth stones, wound between houses and courtyards. Under the pale light, these paths became rivers of silver, guiding footsteps gently through the stillness. You smile softly, because each path felt less like a road and more like a companion through the night. Moonlit evenings were times for slow wandering. Villagers would walk together or alone, tracing familiar routes that looked entirely new under the silver sky. Shadows stretched long and delicate, moving with each step, almost like silent company. You grin gently, because the walk itself was enough no destination required. History tells us that the Aztec people built their settlements with both function and ritual in mind. Some pathways led directly to plazas, some to temples, some to quiet courtyards. Each turn and passage had its purpose. Yet under the moon, all purposes faded into the same rhythm of gentle walking. The night itself became the ritual. There is mystery here, too. Certain paths, worn deeply into the earth, lead toward shallow depressions and hidden hollows. Archaeologists have found that some of these may have been ceremonial pits used for offerings or gatherings. Yet not all of them have been explained. A few paths wander away from villages, leading only to places of silence. You smile, because even the unexplained has its own kind of beauty, its own invitation to stillness. The moonlight painted walls with shifting shadows, patterns that moved when leaves stirred or when a torch flickered faintly. Clay walls gleamed softly, their textures revealed by silver light. You imagine running your hand along them as you walk, cool, smooth in some places, rough in others. You chuckle gently, because even the smallest details seem alive under moonlight. Walking at night was not hurried. Each step fell softly, stirring dust that glowed faintly in silver beams. The air was cool against the skin, the silence filled, with only the sound of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, or the faint splash of water in aqueducts. You grinned softly, because the quiet did not feel empty. It was full of layers that folded gently over each other. The moon itself was significant to the Aztec people. Myths and stories tied its cycle to gods, heroes, and the shaping of time. 2. Walk under its light was to be part of something larger, even if silently so. You breathe deeply, because the moon above feels eternal. Watching gently as generations pass below, some villagers carried small torches, their glow mixing with moonlight, creating double shadows that stretched in two directions. Others trusted the brightness of the night sky alone. You smile softly, because in this balance of firelight and moonlight, the world seemed both fragile and infinite. Paths often led to plazas, open spaces that by day were filled with trade and movement. But by night, they became wide fields of silence. The moon reflected on polished stones, casting a sheen that made the ground shimmer. In these plazas, footsteps echoed softly, a reminder of space, of breath, of stillness beneath the stars. You chuckle gently, because even emptiness felt like companionship. The unseen mystery of ceremonial pathways remains. Some trails end suddenly at cliffs or rivers, their purpose uncertain. Scholars have suggested they may have guided rituals, connecting earthly spaces with celestial alignments. You grin, because not knowing the reason only deepens the sense of wonder. Some paths were perhaps meant to lead nowhere, except into the rhythm of the night. As you walk farther, the village fades behind, and the open fields appear. Crops of maize, beans, and squash gleam softly in silver tones, their leaves stirring gently in night breezes. Between them, narrow trails cut across the land, lines of silver threading through the darkness. You smile gently, because even the fields feel awake, breathing with the moon. You imagine stopping for a moment, listening to the silence. The sound of wind through maize becomes a song, hushed but steady. The moon hangs above, mirrored faintly, in a distant pool of water. The stillness feels endless, but also kind. You chuckle softly, because silence here is never cold. It is always warm, always alive. The Aztecs understood the connection between celestial light and earthly movement. Some pathways aligned with the rising or setting of the moon, marking seasons and cycles. This weaving of stone, earth, and sky made every step a part of a larger rhythm. You smile gently, because each walk was both simple and cosmic at once. Returning to the village, the houses seemed softened by moonlight. There, rounded forms glowing faintly while shadows stretch long across the earth. Courtyards hold a quiet warmth. Fires have dimmed to embers, yet they still breathe a gentle heat. Lanterns flicker in doorways, small stars echoing the larger ones suspended above. You grin softly, because home itself now feels like a reflection of the night sky, a companion to the moon's calm. The paths, plazas, and silent corners all belong to this hour. They welcome measured footsteps, patient breaths, and wandering thoughts. There is no hurry, no pressing task, only the steady rhythm of walking and the soft presence of earth and moon. You chuckle gently because here the journey itself carries its own meaning, unfolding without demand or expectation. The night stretches on as a tapestry of silver light and quiet ground. Moonlit paths guide not just movement but reflection, leading each traveler into a deeper sense of calm. You inhale slowly, letting the scene sink into your mind, as if you are not merely walking through the village, but moving through the gentle pulse of time itself. Every stone, every shadow, every soft rustle of leaves becomes part of a larger rhythm, one that invites you to slow, to breathe, and simply to be. The night grows deeper, and the sky above expands into a boundless ocean of stars. Tiny points of light shimmer gently, each one a story, each one a marker of time. The air is cool, steady, and the silence is vast but comforting, like a blanket of calm drawn over the land. You breathe slowly, allowing yourself to settle into this rhythm of starlight. The Inca, who lived high among the Andean mountains, built observatories not with haste or complexity, but with patience and reverence. Some were simple towers of stone, others carefully aligned windows carved into temple walls. From these places, people would look upward, watching the movements of stars, the rising of the moon, the shifting of constellations. You smile softly. Because the act of looking itself felt like a prayer, mountains served as natural guides. Peaks became markers on the horizon, aligned with solstices and equinoxes. The people understood how the sky and earth were woven together, how the movement of light guided planting, harvest, and ceremony. You grin gently, because every star was both a map and a companion. Some researchers are still studying the alignment of these ancient observatories. Questions remain about how precise the measurements were, how far their knowledge of cycles extended, and what meanings lay hidden in those carefully chosen lines of sight. You chuckle softly, because mystery makes the stars glow even more gently. History tells us that the Inca used their knowledge of the sky to plan agricultural rhythms. The Pleiades, for example, helped predict seasonal rains, guiding when maize should be planted. To stand in an observatory, watching those stars emerge, must have been a moment of trust in the balance between heaven and earth. You breathe deeply, because the thought of farming guided by starlight feels timeless and soothing. The structures themselves still stand, stone cut with patience and purpose, some walls perfectly straight, others curved to frame a specific point in the heavens. In the moonlight, they look like sleeping guardians, holding the memory of countless nights beneath the stars. You smile softly, because stone and sky seem to lean gently toward one another. There are mysteries that linger. Some observatories point not only to stars, but also to shadows cast by the moon, or even to the dark spaces between constellations, which were themselves considered figures with meaning. Why these alignments mattered remains partly hidden. Perhaps they were spiritual guides, perhaps markers of festivals, perhaps something more subtle. You grin softly, because not knowing keeps the stillness alive. Imagine sitting in one of these stone places. The ground beneath is cool, the air crisp with mountain wind, and the sky vast beyond imagining. Stars shimmer with steadiness, their light older than memory. The silence of the high peaks is broken only by the faint rustle of wind through grass or the occasional cry of a night bird. You close your eyes, then open them again, the stars unchanged, waiting, patient. The Incas perceived shapes in the night sky, not only from clusters of stars, but from the dark spaces between them. Llamas, serpents, toads, each shadowed form traced. Across the Milky Way carried meaning, marking seasons, rituals, and the rhythm of life. You smiled gently, realizing the sky was alive, not just with light, but with imagination and guidance. Walking slowly between observatories, and mountains beneath you feel both solid and luminous. Stone pathways glimmer faintly under starlight, each step resonating with earth and sky together. Pausing allows the quiet to unfold fully, a rhythm that blends movement with stillness. You chuckle softly, noticing that here, every action, whether stepping forward or standing still, carries the same weight of presence, the same attentive calm. The constellations and shadowed figures are more than navigation tools. They are companions, teachers, and markers of time. Each dark silhouette against the Milky Way invites reflection, a gentle reminder that observation is both practical and poetic. You breathe slowly, feeling aligned with the vastness above, the mountains below, and the careful, unhurried steps that connect them. The precision of some alignments continues to amaze. Stones set centuries ago still frame solstices and lunar cycles with remarkable accuracy. To sit quietly and watch the sun or moon rise exactly where stone has marked the horizon is to feel the patience of countless generations. You smile softly, because this rhythm belongs not only to the past, but to the present night as well. In some places, water mirrors the sky. Pools near observatories reflected stars, doubling their number, as though the heavens had descended gently to rest on earth. To look into such waters was to be embraced by infinite light, both above and below. You breathe slowly, because the image is soft, endless, and calming. Other mysteries remain in carvings etched into walls and stone spirals, circles, lines that may map the movement of celestial bodies. Some have been explained, others remain. Whispers of thought. You grin gently, because not every answer is needed. Some symbols exist simply to remind us of wonder. As you linger in thought, the sky continues its patient turning. Constellations shift, the moon leans westward, and the Milky Way arches across the night like a river of soft light. The observatory holds you in stillness, a place where time itself feels slower, where each moment lingers like a breath. You chuckle softly, because even eternity can feel gentle. The Inca believed that the order of stars and cycles was woven into daily life, an invisible fabric linking sky, earth, and people. Every planting, every ritual, every prayer was part of that fabric. You breathe deeply, because to imagine living in rhythm with the stars is to feel both small and infinite at once. Eventually, the cold of the mountain air seeps in, but it is not uncomfortable. It is a reminder of the stillness, of the clarity that high places bring. You gather the picture of stars, observatories, stone, and silence into your thoughts, letting them weave gently into calm. You smile softly, because the journey through starlight has no end, only soft continuation. And so the night flows, gentle and unbroken. Stars glimmer patiently, observatories rest in silence, and the world below breathes in rhythm with the heavens. You linger in this image, calm and steady, carried softly by the light of countless ancient skies. The fire glows softly in the center of the room, sending out waves of warmth that mingle with the stillness of night. Its light is steady, orange and golden, flickering but never hurried. The shadows it casts move gently along the walls, stretching and folding with the rhythm of the flame. Around this light, the atmosphere is quiet, almost dreamlike, as if every spark carries a whisper of calm. You breathe slowly, letting your thoughts drift into this gentle glow. The ancestral Pueblo people often wove their fabrics by firelight, using fibers from cotton or yucca They twisted threads with patient hands, creating patterns that grew line by line. Each piece of cloth was more than material. It carried meaning, skill, and the rhythm of lives lived close to the land. You smile softly, because weaving by fire feels like a meditation. Each movement as calm as a breath. The walls around, made of stone and clay, reflect the light unevenly, giving the space a sense of texture and depth. Shadows bend and soften across woven baskets, clay jars, and smooth wooden tools. Every object seems to lean into the warmth, content to rest beneath the glow. You close your eyes briefly, feeling as if the fire's crackle is a lullaby for the night. History tells us that weaving was a vital part of daily life. Clothing, blankets, and bags were all carefully made, not rushed, but guided by patience. Designs often carried geometric patterns, repeating lines, and shapes that echoed the landscape: mountains, rivers, the sun, and the stars. You grin gently, because every woven line was a story told without words. There are mysteries in these textiles. Some patterns depict natural scenes, clouds, animals, and figures that historians still struggle to fully interpret. Were they symbols of myth, records of events, or simply expressions of beauty? The answer remains soft and uncertain. You breathe slowly, because mystery itself feels like a part of the pattern, woven into the threads. Imagine sitting beside a Pueblo weaver. The sound of fibers being pulled, twisted, and set into place is subtle but soothing. The loom creaks slightly with each motion, keeping time with the fire's gentle crackle. The rhythm is steady and unhurried, filling the space with a kind of heartbeat. You smile softly, because the sound of weaving feels almost like rain on a roof, delicate and even. The fire glows brighter when you focus, its light touching every corner. Shadows of moving hands stretch across the walls, forming shapes that flicker and dissolve, only to form again. These shadows are soft companions, never still, always dancing in harmony with the flame. You breathe deeply, letting the play of light and dark become a gentle meditation. For the ancestral Pueblo, weaving was not only craft but connection. Cotton had to be grown, fibers gathered, dyes made from plants, roots, and minerals. Each stage required attention and patience. By the time a piece was finished, it carried not only beauty, but also the quiet labor of many days. You grin softly, because the cloth felt like a slow song, completed note by note. Some woven pieces still survive today, despite the centuries. Their colors may have faded, but the patterns remain visible, the geometry precise, the balance pleasing. Looking at them is like seeing a window into the calm of ancient evenings, when hands move steadily by firelight. You smile softly, because even now, the silence of those nights lingers in the fibers. The fire dims for a moment, and flares gently, as if reminding you of its presence. Sparks drift upward, vanishing before they reach the roof. The warmth reaches your face and hands, wrapping you in comfort. You close your eyes again, and the sensation is as if time has stopped, as if you are held in the same stillness that those weavers once felt. The patterns in textiles sometimes resemble constellations. Dots, lines, and shapes echo stars, and paths they follow. This may have been intentional, or perhaps it was simply a reflection of living so close to the rhythms of the night sky. You chuckle softly, because either way, the fabric holds both earth and heaven in its design. Around the fire, baskets rest filled with fibers, tools, and finished cloth. Their shadows curve gently on the ground, soft outlines in the orange glow. The weaver continues with patience, every movement quiet and precise, never rushed. The room itself breathes with the rhythm of the loom, as though the building is joined in the calm. You breathe slowly, matching this pace, letting it settle into your body. The mystery of certain motifs remains unsolved. Some designs resemble natural scenes, no longer familiar shapes that may have depicted vanished rivers or animals now gone. They remain as questions woven into fabric, messages carried across centuries. You grin gently, because questions left. Unanswered feel gentle, not urgent, like soft footsteps fading into distance. Night deepens outside, but inside the fire still glows. Shadows lean longer, weaving themselves into the fabric of the room, just as threads weave into cloth. The stillness grows more complete, as if the world has slowed to match the pace of the weaver's hands. You smile softly, because in this quiet, every moment feels like eternity stretched thin and gentle. The loom creaks one last time before the piece is set aside. The fire crackles with a final spark, then steadies into low embers. The shadows shrink, folding softly into corners, and the air grows cooler. You breathe deeply, gathering the calm of this space into your own thoughts. To weave by firelight was to live in balance, with work, with patience, with stillness. The ancestral pueblo left behind more than textiles. They left a rhythm, a memory, of nights where hands moved gently in the glow of warm flames. Each motion was measured, each pattern deliberate, carrying the quiet pulse of life itself. You close your eyes, letting the fire's warmth and the shadow's soft dance settle into your mind. The night stretches on, calm and unbroken. Weaving, firelight, and shadow merge into a single gentle pattern, a memory that invites deeper rest. You breathe slowly, matching the measured pace of those hands long past, letting the soft rhythm of threads and flame guide you into stillness. Here, time itself seems to pause, patient and unhurried, as peace settles fully around you. The night has deepened, and the air carries a coolness that feels soft against the skin. A gentle breeze flows through the village, passing between doorways left ajar, circling over rooftops, and weaving its way into the stillness. Its sound is not loud, but delicate, like a whisper shared between trees and leaves. You breathe slowly, letting the rhythm of wind fold into your own breath. As if you are swaying with it, the Hopi people often welcome the night by leaving their doors open, allowing the air to flow freely. This was not only for comfort, but also for connection with the breath of the world itself, the living rhythm of sky and earth. The wind carried coolness in summer and stories in winter, reminders that even in stillness, nature was always moving. You smile softly, because the breeze feels like a gentle voice, soothing and timeless. Above, the leaves of old trees stir. Their sound is light, almost like water moving over stones. When the wind passes, the branches shift slightly, shadows, bending across the ground. The rustling is steady, never hurried, a constant lullaby written by the night. You close your eyes, listening, as if the leaves are speaking a language meant only to calm. Some trees near Hopi villages have lived for centuries, their roots deep in the desert soil, their branches weathered but enduring. It is said that a few still carry marks of age scars from storms, grooves in bark, silent records of seasons long past. You breathe gently, because standing among such trees feels like standing among wise guardians, keepers of quiet memories. The air moves through rooftops of stone and clay, brushing over wooden beams, slipping through narrow spaces. The sound it makes is almost like a flute, soft and hollow, a tune more without effort. The homes themselves seem to breathe, expanding and contracting with the night. You grin softly, because the sound of the breeze feels like music made only for those who pause to hear. Night breezes bring scents as well as cooling under stars, faint traces of herbs drying by doorways, smoke from fires that are now only embers. The mixture is light, carried in shifting waves, never heavy. Each breath you take feels like a sip of calm, infused with fragments of the day now resting. You close your eyes, letting these scents fold into your memory like soft fabric. For the Hopi, the natural world was not silent, but full of quiet voices, the rustle of leaves, the movement of air, the hum of insects in the dark. These sounds were reminders of connection, that even when people rested, the earth continued in its own rhythm. You smile softly, because listening feels like participating, joining the harmony rather than interrupting it. Some of the oldest trees hold mysteries. Their rings mark centuries, yet there are still traces within their wood that science cannot fully explain. Subtle shifts in growth, patterns of resilience across drought and storm. These trees remain as silent witnesses, their lives stretching far beyond human memory. You breathe slowly, comforted by the thought that time itself bends gently around them. The wind grows steadier for a moment, passing through narrow alleys, lifting grains of sand that sparkle faintly in moonlight. The sound of the sand drifting is almost inaudible, yet you can imagine it, like a soft sigh against stone. Shadows stretch longer, tilting gently with the sway of branches. You grin softly, because even the smallest movements feel meaningful. When slowed by the night dot in some homes, woven mats and blankets flutter gently by open doors. Their edges shift like waves, catching the breeze in soft arcs. The movement is quiet but visible, an unspoken reminder that rest can still hold motion, that stillness and flow are not opposites but companions. You breathe gently, feeling the same sway within yourself. The sound of leaves remains constant, like a choir murmuring softly in the distance. Sometimes it grows when the wind strengthens, and sometimes it fades into silence, leaving only the sound of your own breath. Ebb and flow is soothing, reminding you of the tides, of the endless rhythm between fullness and emptiness. You smile softly, because in this rhythm you feel safe, as if carried on a soft current of air. For centuries, people have listened to these breezes, knowing they bring both rest and change. Wind can shape the land, smooth stones, scatter seeds, and carry stories. Yet here, tonight, it carries only calm, moving gently through the village, brushing your thoughts into stillness. You close your eyes, surrendering to its softness. The mystery of old trees lingers. Some still stand where they have for hundreds of years, their branches reaching toward stars that generations have watched. Their leaves whisper the same lullabies, now that they once whispered to those long before. You grin softly, because this continuity feels like a gift, a reminder that peace can stretch across ages. As the breeze continues, the village seems to dissolve into quiet harmony. Walls, roofs, trees, and leaves all move together in a single slow rhythm, unified by the flow of air. The night feels vast yet intimate, a space both endless and protective. You breathe deeply, resting in this unity as though the whole world has become a single, calm breath. The fire embers glow faintly in the distance, a reminder of warmth. Yet here, in the coolness of the breeze, you feel equally held. Warmth and coolness, stillness and motion, light and shadow, they balance each other gently, as though weaving a fabric of night. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you are that fabric, part of its quiet weave. The leaves whisper softly, and the breeze drifts gently through the night, steady and unhurried. The darkness offers itself as a quiet companion, asking nothing, simply being present. You breathe slowly, letting the rhythm of air and leaf guide you deeper into calm. The Hopi night lingers around open doors, through every corner touched by gentle wind. You rest within this memory, allowing the murmurs of nature to fold around you, carrying you further into stillness, where peace moves slowly and fully, wrapping the world in quiet comfort. The night has grown deeper now, and the village has become quiet beyond words. The plazas, once filled with the soft rhythm of footsteps, laughter, and markets, now lie in stillness. Moonlight spills gently across their open spaces, casting pale, reflections on the ground. Each stone seems to glow faintly, as though remembering the weight of countless feet that once crossed here. You breathe slowly, and with each breath, the silence deepens. The Mississippian plazas, wide and open, were once central spaces for gathering, for rituals, for trade, and for life itself. Now, under the blanket of night, they stretch empty, vast, and calm. The air is cool, moving gently between the mounds and open paths, carrying no voices, but only the sound of its own passage. You smile softly, because even in emptiness, the space feels alive, echoing with quiet memory. Your steps are slow, almost silent, as though the earth itself encourages gentleness here. The ground is firm yet softened by centuries, each footprint dissolving as quickly as it forms. You imagine the rhythm of past lives, people moving with baskets, with offerings, with songs. Tonight, the plaza holds only your quiet presence, yet it feels welcoming, as though it has always held space for rest. Some stone statues still stand, their forms weathered but enduring, their gaze fixed in directions chosen long ago. They have not moved for hundreds of years, and still they hold their watch, silent and unwavering. The mystery lingers, why they were placed in such precise alignments, why their direction has remained unchanged. You breathe softly, because their stillness feels reassuring, as if they are guardians of the night. The plazas open like calm seas, vast and without interruption. When the breeze passes through, it moves without resistance, creating an invisible tide across the open ground. The faint rustle of grasses at the edges adds a soft note, blending with the whisper of the air. You smile gently, because the sound is like a lullaby made of space itself, wide and unbroken. The moonlight shifts slightly, casting longer shadows from the mounds surrounding the plaza. The shapes stretch and bend, silent companions to the emptiness. They do not move quickly, only slowly as the night continues, as though time itself has chosen to move at the pace of rest. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining yourself as part of this shadow, dissolving into the stillness. The Mississippian plazas once held dances, rituals, and moments of gathering, yet tonight they hold only silence. This silence does not feel empty, but full, filled with the presence of all that has passed. You breathe gently, because you can sense the echo, not as sound, but as a calm weight of memory woven into the ground dot at the edges of the plaza, tall. Grasses sway faintly. Their motion is subtle, visible only when the breeze gathers, bending them as though they are bowing to the night. Their sound is a soft rustling, like whispers exchanged between one blade and another. You smile softly, because the sound feels like the plaza itself is sighing, releasing the weight of the day. The statues, still facing the same direction after so many centuries, seem almost dreamlike in their patience. Their presence is quiet, but firm, watching over a space that now carries only rest. The mystery of their alignment is unsolved, but perhaps that is part of the comfort, that some things remain beyond explanation, standing simply as reminders of continuity. You breathe deeply, feeling steadied by their silent gaze. Your own steps continue across the open plaza, slow and light, like feathers brushing over stone. Each step fades quickly into the night, leaving no trace. This erasure peaceful, as though you are joining a rhythm that does not cling but flows onward. You close your eyes, and the sensation of walking becomes almost like floating, each movement dissolving into calm air. The emptiness of the plaza creates a vastness of sound. Even the softest noise, the brush of wind, the shift of sand, seems amplified, yet still gentle. It is not a silence that presses down, but one that opens wide, making space for every thought to dissolve. You smile faintly, because this openness feels like an invitation to let go. The moon rises higher, its light cooling, spreading evenly across the plaza's expanse. The ground seems to glow, as though the earth itself is breathing with light. Shadows grow longer still, stretching toward you, wrapping you softly. You breathe slowly, allowing yourself to sink into their quiet company. Dot in the distance, the mounds stand steady, shaped by hands long gone but preserved by time. Their forms are softened by earth, yet their presence remains strong. They hold memory not through words, but through shape, through their silent watch over the plaza. You grin softly, because they seem less like monuments and more like gentle hills made to hold the night. Some say that plazas such as these were designed to align with the sun and moon, to mark seasons, to connect the cycles of earth with those of sky. Whether or not this was fully understood, the sensation of standing here makes it easy to believe. The plaza feels tuned, resonant, as if its silence itself is in harmony with the stars above. You breathe deeply, carried by this harmony. The statues remain unmoved, their gaze never faltering. They remind you of stillness, of patience that stretches beyond time. The mystery of their watch is not for solving tonight. It is enough to feel their presence, to know they are there, standing as quiet anchors in the night. You move slowly across the open plaza, each step dissolving into silence, each breath flowing into the cool night air. The vastness does not overwhelm but comforts, holding you in a space both endless and safe. Moonlight spills softly across the ground, shadows stretching wide yet gentle. The night folds around you like a blanket, neither hurried nor demanding, only offering calm. You let yourself sink into its stillness, carried quietly toward deeper rest. The plazas, the mounds, and the statues remain, silent and steady, eternal witnesses to time's passage. In their quiet presence you find rest, embraced by a calm that is not emptiness but fullness woven from memory, shadow, and the gentle glow of moonlight, carrying you gently into the night. The night deepens, and the world softens into its quietest form. The ancient walls of clay and stone rise around you, touched by the pale light of the moon. Their surfaces carry the texture of time, marked gently by countless seasons, by wind, by hands that once shaped them with patience. As you walk slowly beside these walls, you feel their presence, not heavy, but calm, like guardians of rest. Among the Maya and Aztec, the end of a day often came with soft rituals, not of noise, but of stillness. Families gathered near firelight, their homes glowing faintly in the darkness. A prayer might be whispered, or a gesture made toward the stars, not hurried, but gentle, allowing the transition from wakefulness to rest. Tonight, you can almost see them, warm fires flickering, shadows moving softly against the walls, laughter fading into murmurs that dissolve into night. The walls around you have endured. Some still bear the faint trace of handprints pressed into the surface long ago. These marks remain as quiet reminders of the lives that once filled these spaces, people who built, who rested, who dreamed. Each handprint is like a whisper across time, a soft assurance that presence lingers even in silence. You smile faintly, because this closeness makes the night feel less empty, more like a shared moment between past and present. The fires burn low in the hearths, their flames smaller. Now their glow warmer and steadier. The sound of crackling wood becomes softer, like a gentle rhythm to breathe alongside. Around these fires, the day would end not with grand events, but with the peace of simple company, meals shared in quiet, and the comfort of being enclosed by walls that held warmth. The moonlight enters through open spaces, painting silver patterns on the ground. Shadows shift as clouds move slowly overhead, changing the shapes that rest along the walls. The rhythm is calm and patient, like waves on still water. You let your eyes follow the movement, letting the play of shadow and light ease your thoughts into slower motion. The Maya and Aztec knew that rest was as sacred as activity, that the body and spirit needed balance. Their days may have been filled with work, markets, gardens, and rituals, but their nights were made for gentleness. Some nights ended with quiet prayers, with offerings of gratitude, with calm songs that drifted upward to the stars. The air tonight seems to carry echoes of those soft voices, not loud enough to be heard, but present enough to be felt. The clay walls glow softly in the firelight, their surfaces holding warmth as though they still remember the sun of the day. Before, they feel alive, shaped not only by hands, but by patience and time, each curve carrying traces of both work and waiting. Walking near them, you sense their quiet embrace, as if wrapped in the history of countless nights like this one. Say faint pigments remain on some walls, colors that once decorated them with patterns now faded. Brightness is gone, yet memory lingers. Under moonlight, perhaps these lines glow faintly again, visible only to eyes patient enough to look. You breathe gently, and the thought feels like a secret shared, only with the night. Evening rituals unfold, imagined yet near. A family gathers, close, sharing warmth. Another lights a small flame against the wall, steady and calm. Someone stretches on a mat, watching shadows drift across the ceiling. These simple gestures, lived centuries ago, feel present, woven into the stillness surrounding you now. You pause, letting quiet settle deeper. The air is cool, carrying scents of clay, smoke, and earth. Breathing slowly, you match its rhythm each. Inhale a gift, each exhale a release. The walls remain steady, holding space for rest, and then the handprints return to mind. Why were they pressed into clay? Were they symbols of belonging, ritual marks, or simple traces left without thought? The answer is uncertain, but the feeling is clear. These hands connect across centuries, reminding you that every life leaves its quiet marks, that every dream has always unfolded beneath the same moon. The fire grows smaller, the plaza emptier, the world slower. Your steps fade into nothingness as you sit near the wall, leaning against its cool surface. The ground beneath you is firm, the wall behind you steady, the air around you kind. You close your eyes, allowing the embrace of stone and clay to hold you. The stars above shine brighter as clouds drift away. Their reflection dances in your thoughts, as though the night sky itself is leaning closer. You breathe in time with the stars, each one pulsing gently, each one steady. The observatories, the plazas, the paths, they all seem to point toward these stars, as though reminding you that rest is part of the same cycle, part of the same sky. The walls rise around you, not as barriers, but as arms of the night. Their silence is deep, their strength soft, their presence endless. You smile one last time before your thoughts dissolve into stillness, knowing the night will hold you gently until sleep arrives. Now, let your body rest. Let your shoulders grow heavy, sinking into softness. Feel the weight of the day dissolve, each thought drifting away like leaves carried on a gentle stream. The ancient walls surround you, strong yet tender, their quiet presence keeping you safe. Breathe deeply. Each inhale draws in calm. Each exhale releases all that no longer needs to stay. Imagine yourself floating through old pathways, walking slowly past fields of maize, along calm rivers, through plazas bathed in moonlight. The images drift and soften, fading like candlelight. You are wrapped in warmth, in safety, in timeless comfort. The villages of long ago live quietly in your dreams, their gardens, their fires, their stars, all woven into the fabric of your rest. The sound of wind, of water, of distant leaves becomes your lullaby. Let sleep come easily, like stepping into an embrace. You are safe. You are calm. You are drifting deeper now, carried by night itself. May your dreams be filled with gentle rivers, soft woven fabrics, and endless skies of stars. Sleep well, and I will meet you again in another quiet story on another calm night. Good night.